Welcome to Saints Sodality, a new podcast where we dive deep into the life of saints.
Today, we're really immersing ourselves in a life that's just, packed with extraordinary detail.
Absolutely. We're looking at Francesco Forgione, who, the world came to know as Padre Pio.
Right, and our sources are these detailed biographies, accounts from people who knew him, documenting this life of intense piety, but also incredible physical suffering and, a lot of controversy, too.
And our mission here for you listening is to kind of peel back the layers, get past the almost legendary image,
Yeah, beyond the statues and the holy cards.
Exactly. We want to get into the human story, which is actually far stranger and maybe more compelling than the myth. We're digging into the surprising facts.
From his beginnings in, serious poverty.
Abject poverty, really.
To these early struggles with school, and then these unique spiritual and physical things that happen to him, the afflictions.
And that really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? The central mystery we're kind of holding on to throughout this dive. How did this incredibly shy boy from a poor Italian village, someone whose body was just a constant source of pain, who apparently just wanted to be left alone,
Right, seeking obscurity.
how did he become this massive global spiritual phenomenon? It's a huge paradox.
It really is. His whole life seems marked by, external chaos, constantly bumping up against his desire for quiet.
And the source material lays that tension out in, really staggering detail. So let's dive in.
Okay, so to understand the man, you really have to start at the beginning. Pietrelcina, May 25th, 1887.
Yeah, and the biographers don't mince words. They state clearly his family, Orazio Forgione and Maria Giuseppa D'Annunzio, were extremely poor, of peasant stock.
And that's not just, didn't have much money. This was hard scrabble, a life tied to the land, physical survival.
It's so important to get that context, the depth of that poverty, because it makes what happens next just incredible.
You mean the family sacrifice?
Exactly. The family was big. Surviving meant everyone worked mostly in the fields, dawn till dusk. It was brutal.
And then his father, Orazio, Ziorazio, they called him.
Right. He sees his other son, Michele, just toiling away under this baking Italian sun, and he makes a decision about Francesco. A pivotal one.
He basically says, not this one.
Pretty much. He declares, I am never going to let you see the sun. Which sounds harsh, but he meant
He wouldn't be doing that kind of manual labor.
right. He wanted Francesco to study to become a monk. But, turning a peasant boy into a cleric costs money. Money they just didn't have.
Which leads to Ziorazio's big move.
It's legendary, really. He didn't just hope for the best, he acted. To get the money for Francesco's education, he travels across the Atlantic. Not once, but twice.
All the way to the United States.
Yeah, working as a laborer. In Jamaica, Long Island specifically. You have to picture that journey back then. The crossing, the work, leaving your family.
Just incredible determination, all for his quiet son's vocation. It speaks volumes about the family's faith, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A profound level of sacrifice.
And young Francesco himself, what was he like?
The sources paint a picture, right?
They do. Very consistent picture, actually. Quiet, intensely shy, sort of retiring by nature.
But that shyness hid something fierce, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. Inside, there was this incredibly intense spiritual life, a deep religious conviction, but also this almost painful sensitivity to sin.
Painful is the right word. The sources say if he heard someone blaspheming, had taken God's name in vain or the Virgin Mary's.
His reaction wasn't just disapproval.
No. He had apparently physically run away, find somewhere to hide, and just weep. Bitterly. Then kneel down and pray.
It's more than just being pious, isn't it? It's like a physical, emotional allergy to anything he saw as spiritual offense.
Yeah, an allergy. That's a good way to put it.
And yet this kid, with all this internal fire, he described himself in this really famous way.
Ah, the macaron senza sale.
Exactly. A noodle without salt.
Meaning bland, colorless, uninteresting.
Pretty much. That's how he saw himself. Totally ordinary, kind of a nobody. Wow. The gap between that self-image and the reality of his inner life
is huge. And that gap, that contrast between the shy exterior and the, frankly, volatile inner world, that's kind of the engine driving his whole story, isn't it?
Yeah. This noodle without salt was already, in a way, a spiritual warrior, even if he didn't see it himself.
So he needs an education, right? The ones Ziorazio is sacrificing everything for.
And the first attempt Well, it did not go well.
Not at all. It was kind of a disaster, actually. Seemed to confirm Francesco's own low opinion of himself.
They found this teacher, Dom Domenico Tizzani.
Yeah, and maybe he was the only option in a village that poor, but he was deeply unsuitable, an ex-priest.
Relieved of duties, wasn't he, for not exactly sticking to his vows of celibacy.
Right. Living openly in sin, basically. Now imagine placing this boy, Francesco, with his extreme horror of sin, under that guy's guidance.
Toxic is the word that comes to mind.
Completely. And the result was predictable. Tizzani complained almost immediately. Said Francesco had no brains for book learning.
Just dismissed him. Told his mother, Maria Giuseppa, to send him back to the fields. Stop wasting the family's hard-earned money.
It looked like Zia Razio's sacrifice was for nothing. Game over.
But this is where Francesco, the 7-year-old, reacts. And it's not disappointment, it's outrage.
Yeah. When his mom tells him he's out of school because he's, too slow, too simple, that colorless character.
He doesn't accept it. He pushes back.
Fiercely. He's indignant. But not just about being called dumb, it's about who's calling him dumb.
Exactly. He apparently cries out something like, "My head is no good." You mean his head is no good. He is living in sin in his own house.
I mean, wow, the moral clarity from a 7-year-old, it's stunning.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this points to something crucial the sources suggest, right?
Yeah, this is key. It likely wasn't about aptitude at all. The interpretation is that Francesco's horror of sin was so profound
So absolutely.
that just being around Tizzani's open sinfulness, it seemed to literally paralyze his faculties.
Like his spiritual sensitivity just shut down his ability to learn in that environment.
Exactly. The sin acted like a block, which completely flips the script on whether he had brains for book learning or not. It wasn't intellectual, it was spiritual.
Okay, so Tizzani's out,
Mm-hmm.
but how do they fix this? Gervasio's still away, right?
He is working on Long Island, but he hears about this, about Don Domenico, and writes home he's worried.
Worried about the teacher's reputation.
Yeah, he feared that having studied under someone like Tizzani, even briefly, might actually prevent Francesco from being accepted into the Capuchin order later. The church authorities might hold it against him.
So the pressure was on Maria Giuseppa to find someone else, someone suitable.
Immense pressure. The next candidate was a Maestro Cacavo, but he was hesitant.
Why?
He was apparently afraid of reprisals. Don Domenico might have been disgraced, but he probably still had local influence, or maybe just a bad temper. Cacavo didn't want trouble.
So what did Maria Giuseppa do?
She pulled out the big guns,
Yeah.
Italian family diplomacy, or maybe family pressure is more accurate.
Okay.
She got Cacavo's brother-in-law involved,
Yeah.
and he delivered a pretty stark ultimatum.
Which was?
Basically, if you don't take Francesco as a student, all family ties are cut, and your sister. She'll never speak to you again, ever.
Whoa. That is intense.
Highly effective, though. Cacavo caved. He took Francesco on.
And once he was out of that toxic environment with Tizzani,
The change was immediate. All that supposed lack of aptitude, gone, vanished. He learned incredibly quickly.
so quickly that Cacavo himself said,
Yeah, he joked that soon Francesco would be teaching him. A complete turnaround. Proof positive that the earlier problem was spiritual, not intellectual. The noodle without salt had plenty of substance after all.
and there's that lovely ending to the Tizzani part of the story.
Yeah.
The consoling sequel, the sources call it.
Right. Years later, Dom Domenico Tizzani, the guy who mocked him, he apparently repented, had a change of heart.
And when he was dying,
He died shriven and anointed in the arms of his former pupil, Padre Pio di Pietrelcina.
wow, the student he dismissed came back to offer him absolution at the end. That's quite something.
It closes that loop beautifully, doesn't it? Forgiveness and grace. Right there.
Okay, so academic hurdles cleared. Francesco enters the Capuchins monastery at Morcone. This is 1902. He's starting his novitiate.
Yes, beginning the life he felt called to. But the Capuchin life is demanding, extremely so. Poverty, strict discipline, lots of fasting.
And this immediately clashes with his physical state, right? The sources call his constitution delicate.
Very delicate. The rigor of the monastery life put an immense strain on him right away.
To the point where his parents were actually frightened when they saw him.
Yeah, the sources say they visited at the end of the year and were genuinely shocked by his emaciated appearance and his pale face. They thought he was being starved, begged the father director to let them take him home.
So this physical frailty, this poor health, it becomes a constant theme.
Absolutely constant. It's the backdrop to everything else. He suffered from these baffling illnesses, frequent high fevers that would just spike, then vanish suddenly, no explanation.
And issues with food.
Major issues, long stretches where he apparently couldn't keep any food down at all, virtually nothing.
And this leads to one of the most, frankly, astonishing claims in the biographies.
You mean the sustenance?
Yeah, it says at one point he subsisted for 21 days on no other nourishment but the sacred host, just the Eucharist.
It's a staggering claim, and it really highlights that core theme emerging.
Yeah.
This profound physical suffering met with or sustained by some kind of supernatural reliance.
Yet, even with his body constantly failing him.
His devotion didn't waver. They said he was often seen reading his textbooks, heavy, dense theological works, on his knees. Incredible discipline despite the weakness.
Okay, so he's physically frail, deeply devout, living this rigorous life, and then the spiritual warfare kicks in.
Yeah, and this wasn't just, internal temptation. The sources describe it as constant interference from what he believed were the powers of darkness, actual attacks.
And these attacks weren't subtle. There was physical evidence.
Apparently so. His fellow monks would sometimes find his cell in just chaos. Dire confusion is the phrase used.
What kind of chaos?
Books torn up, blankets thrown on the floor, ink splattered on the walls, things like that.
Wow. For us listening now, that sounds like something out of the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
How did the biographers handle that? Did they just report his claims?
They reported based on testimonies, his own accounts to spiritual directors, and what other friars witnessed regarding the state of his cell. They emphasized the variety of these experiences too. Hideous monsters insulting him.
And deception, right. Demons disguising themselves.
Exactly. Sometimes appearing as fellow monks to try and confuse him or lead him astray.
And the most insidious one was the demon appearing as his confessor.
Yeah, as Padre Agostino, his old trusted confessor, this apparition urged him to give up his strict practices, his asceticism. Claimed God didn't approve, that it was prideful.
That's terrifying, using the guise of spiritual authority to undermine his vocation.
The ultimate trick, really. But Fra Pio, as he was then, he had defenses. He used a test.
The Viva Jesu test.
That's the one. Long live Jesus. He commanded the apparition to say it. The demon couldn't. It vanished instantly. And apparently left behind this distinct, foul, sulfurous stench.
A physical trace of the encounter.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Very. And this pattern repeats. There's another really famous one. The black dog apparition.
Okay, tell us about that.
One hot summer night, he couldn't sleep, goes to the window for some air, looks across to the neighboring building.
Expecting to see a neighbor, maybe.
Right. But instead, he sees this monstrous black dog sitting on the neighboring windowsill. Just sitting there, staring at him with wild, ferocious eyes.
Okay, creepy.
Then it gives this tremendous leap and vanishes over the rooftop. Gone.
And the chilling detail is...
The room where the dog was sitting, it was empty. The friar who lived there had moved out the week before. There was physically nowhere for a dog to be sitting.
So it wasn't just a dog.
Seems unlikely. Alone, terrifying, witnessed only by Pio. Another unsettling encounter.
So amidst all this, the fevers, the fasting issues, the physical attacks, the spiritual battles, he somehow keeps going with his studies.
He does, and despite a doctor actually diagnosing him as tubercular and basically saying he wouldn't live long.
He makes it. Ordination.
August 10th, 1910. Ordained a priest in the Cathedral of Benevento. He achieved his goal.
But that thread of family sacrifice continues right to the end, doesn't it?
It does. Zio Orazio, his father, still in America, still working to support the family.
So he missed the ceremony. The culmination of everything he'd worked and sacrificed for.
Yeah. His money paid for the ordination, but the cost was his absence. A bittersweet reality.
Okay, so he's ordained, Padre Pio now. He's stationed in Foggia, but that chronic health issue, it just won't let up.
No, it dogs him constantly. He keeps getting sent home to Pietrelcina for rest cures. It's a recurring pattern.
And it's during one of these rest periods, back home in 1915, that something significant happens, a precursor, right?
Exactly. The internal spiritual suffering starts to manifest externally, mystically.
Where did this happen?
He built himself this little hut in his father's garden, just a simple place for prayer and study, seeking quiet. It's a hot September day.
A place of retreat. But the mystical doesn't wait for convenience, does it?
Apparently not. His mother, Maria Giuseppa, sees him coming out of the hut, crossing the garden, and he's waving his hands, shaking them.
How did she describe it?
As though they had been stung by bees, just waving them in the air in pain.
And her reaction was quite down to earth, wasn't it?
Very. She asks him, gently, "Are you playing the guitar, Francesco?"
And his reply.
Simple, direct, "No. But I have stinging pains in my hands."
And the date of this is significant.
Hugely significant. September 20th, 1915. which commemorates the stigmata of St. Francis of Assisi.
So he's feeling the pain, the stinging, in the places where the wounds would later appear. He's marked, mystically.
Marked, but not yet visibly wounded. It's an internal, painful precursor.
And right at this moment of intense, hidden spiritual crisis, the world intrudes in a big way.
Yep. World War I, bureaucracy calls, Padre Pio gets drafted.
Drafted, with his health record.
You'd think not, right? But he's called up. They put him in the medical corps, which is kind of ironic given his condition.
How'd that go?
Predictably badly. His health issues, the tuberculosis the doctors had diagnosed, were immediately obvious. They couldn't ignore it.
So they sent him home.
Initially, yes. Then back to a military hospital in Naples. Eventually, they grant him a 6-month furlough, a medical leave.
Okay, seems reasonable. But
then the furlough ends. He's supposed to report back or get new orders, but nothing comes, so he stays put. And the army bureaucracy, well, it loses track of him.
Which leads to what the biographers call
the Mozartian farce of confused identities. It's brilliantly chaotic.
the army thinks he's deserted.
Exactly. They issue tracers for Francesco Forgione, a deserter. Standard procedure.
But finding him turns into a comedy of errors.
Complete comedy. Military police go to Pietrelcina, his hometown. Anyone know Francesco Forgione? Blank stares. Until his sister pipes up.
And says,
"Oh, you mean my brother, Padre Pio? He's living in a friary way up in San Giovanni Rotondo."
okay, so they have a new lead. Off they go to San Giovanni Rotondo.
Right. New set of inquiries. "We're looking for Francesco Forgione." And again, blank stares.
Because?
Nobody there knew him by that name. They only knew the quiet Capuchin friar, Padre Pio.
So you've got this figure, already marked by mystical pain, hiding out in this remote village, and the entire Italian army is hunting for a deserter who's actually too sick to serve.
It's perfect irony, isn't it? The world's bureaucracy completely baffled by this man seeking obscurity.
How did it get resolved? They eventually found him, right?
They did. Dragged him before the captain, accused him of desertion. But Padre Pio just calmly pulls out his furlough papers.
Which stated
that he was to await further instructions, and his defense was impeccable. He just said, "My instructions did not come to me until today."
You can't argue with that, really. The army was outplayed by its own paperwork.
Completely. So what could they do? They gave him a final discharge for reasons of health, after only about a month of actual service scattered across that period.
And the final touch, pension.
He refused it. Flat out refused the military pension they offered him, said he hadn't done anything to earn it.
Wow. Principle over payout.
A quiet act of integrity, and then he just went back to the obscurity he seemed to crave. The army chapter was closed.
So the military interlude is over. Padre Pio settles, permanently this time.
Yeah.
In San Giovanni Rotondo.
Yes, and this place becomes absolutely central. It's the stage for the rest of his life, the place people associate with him, and its location is key.
Key because it was so isolated.
Profoundly isolated. A poor, pretty primitive mountain village, way up, 1,800 feet above sea level on the Gargano Peninsula, which itself is remote.
How remote are we talking back then, early 20th century?
We're talking serious effort to get there, mostly by foot or maybe muleback, no easy roads, a guaranteed separation, a buffer from the noise and bustle of the modern world.
But this isolation wasn't just geographic, was it? The place itself had a history, a mystical resonance.
It really did. It's fascinating. Even the name Rotondo points to its deep past. It was originally the site of a round temple, Roman, dedicated to Janus.
Janus, the two-faced god, looking back and forward.
Exactly. Symbolic, perhaps. But the whole area was seen as a spiritual place for centuries, a refuge from the marketplaces of the world, as one source puts it. People went there seeking something deeper.
And there's a specific cave tradition too, right, on Monte Gargano?
Yes, very important. The ancient belief was that this cave was where the god Apollo fought some kind of mythical monster, good versus evil type stuff.
Okay, pagan roots. But the Christian tradition picked that up.
It absorbed it and, you could say, elevated it. The tradition says the archangel Michael himself fought and defeated the devil in that very same cave.
Michael the archangel, the warrior angel.
The ultimate spiritual warrior. And according to the story, Michael then demanded a church be built on that spot to commemorate the victory over evil.
So Padre Pio didn't just end up in some random quiet village. He landed in a place with a long documented history as a spiritual battleground.
Precisely. It feels almost preordained, like the landscape itself was prepared for the kind of life he would live there. A place known for confronting darkness.
And the friary itself.
Yeah.
Santa Maria del Grazie, what was that like?
It reflected the whole environment. Simple, poor, modest. A small, square building, no grand entrance or facade. The door was even off-center, just kind of clinging to the rocky hillside.
Old.
Rebuilt in 1616. But it felt ancient, part of the landscape. It embodied that sense of obscurity, of being hidden away, exactly what Pio seemed to want, a place to disappear. So he's there, in San Giovanni Rotondo, settling into this quiet, hidden life for about a year. And then, everything changes.
Friday, September 20th, 1918. The hidden pain he felt in 1915 becomes visible, public.
Yes, the full manifestation. And again, the date is striking just 3 days after the feast of the Stigmata of St. Francis. The parallels are impossible to ignore.
Where did it happen? Was he alone?
He was completely alone, in the choir loft of the little church, making his prayers of thanksgiving after saying Mass, a moment of deep, private devotion. Suddenly, a piercing cry rent the silence, just shattered the quiet of the friary.
Someone heard it.
Another monk heard the cry, rushed to the choir, and found Padre Pio unconscious, lying on the floor.
And the wounds.
Bleeding profusely. 5 deep open wounds. Hands, feet, and his side. The classic locations of Christ's crucifixion wounds. The stigmata, fully visible.
What was the immediate reaction?
They carried him to a cell. When he came to, his first instinct, apparently, was secrecy. He begged the other monks respect his secret, asked them to hide what had happened.
But that wasn't really possible, was it?
Not even remotely. An event like that, in a place already seen as spiritually charged, news traveled incredibly fast even in that remote region. People started coming in droves, the sources say, to see the saint.
Okay, now pause here, because there's a really crucial, almost paradoxical detail the sources mention happening around the same time, 1918.
Yes, his physical health, the tuberculosis.
Right. While these incredibly painful open wounds are appearing on his body, doctors examined his lungs and declared them
Absolutely free of any sign of tuberculosis. Completely clear.
So it's like one form of suffering. The long-term debilitating illness vanishes, only to be replaced by this other, more dramatic, mystical suffering.
It's a profound juxtaposition. The timing seems too coincidental to ignore. A simultaneous physical cure alongside the onset of the stigmata.
How did the church hierarchy react to the news of the wounds spreading?
Cautiously. Very cautiously. The institutional church, as the source notes, was consistently distrustful of things like this.
Why the distrust? Fear of fraud? Hysteria?
All of the above. They worried about mass hysteria, mob mentality, potential hoaxes, plus sudden phenomena drawing huge crowds. That's always a challenge for governance.
So what did they do?
The Father Provincial, his superior, acted quickly, sent photographs of the wounds to the Vatican, and crucially, he called in a doctor, a respected physician, Dr. Luigi Romanelli from Barletta, to conduct a medical investigation.
And this was just the beginning of the medical side of things, wasn't it?
Oh yes. This kicked off years of what the sources explicitly call Padre Pio's prolonged martyrdom. Not just the pain of the wounds themselves, but the agony of constant skeptical medical scrutiny.
What did that involve?
Persistent investigations, doctors poking, prodding, analyzing, and they mandated trying every kind of cure imaginable. Bandages, ointments, treatments.
Why try cures? Weren't they investigating if they were supernatural?
Exactly. They wanted to see if the wounds would respond like normal wounds. If they healed, maybe they were natural or self-inflicted or psychosomatic. If they didn't, well, that was the question.
And how did the wounds behave under the scrutiny?
They consistently defied medical understanding. They never closed up despite all the attempts to make them heal. They never stopped bleeding, though the amount varied.
And the most baffling part.
They never got infected. Never.
Which, back then, pre-antibiotics, open wounds, covered with airtight bandages and thick creams like they used,
should have become horribly infected. Septic, almost certainly. That constant, clean bleeding from unhealing, uninfected wounds under those conditions. That was the persistent medical mystery. There was no explanation for it.
What was the physical toll on him?
Yeah.
Beyond the pain, just living with this.
Immense. Very humanizing details come through. He apparently struggled to fully close his hands because of the wounds in his palms.
Making everyday tasks difficult.
Very difficult. Even vesting for Mass, tying the knots on the vestments was hard. And walking.
because of the feet.
Yes, the pain was so bad that when he came down the altar steps after giving communion, he had to do it backward, very carefully, to avoid pressure on the soles of his wounded feet.
Just trying to manage the constant pain.
Exactly, which leads to that famous, maybe slightly sharp quote. Someone asked him, kind of bluntly, if the wounds hurt.
And he replied,
"Do you think that the Lord gave them to me for a decoration, a flash of his suffering, and maybe a little bit of exasperation?"
So these medical exams went on for years. What was the outcome?
Eventually, after stacks of reports basically confirming the wounds were unexplainable but real, the authorities kind of gave up. They issued a final decree, stop the examinations, stop the attempted cures, leave him be.
So the medical martyrdom ended, but the wounds remained.
Yes. He was left in peace by the doctors, but not by the pain. That continued for decades.
Okay, so the wounds are established, the medical frenzy dies down, but the pilgrims keep coming. This creates a new problem for the church, right?
A big one. You have this undeniable phenomenon drawing huge crowds to a remote place. The church hierarchy sees the potential for things to get out of hand, what the sources call mass psychology.
Meaning, like mob rule, uncontrolled devotion.
Yeah, the risk of a kind of mob canonization while he's still alive, people declaring him a saint prematurely, maybe attributing things to him that weren't accurate, plus just the chaos of huge crowds.
They acted to control it, to manage the situation.
Decisively, they effectively silenced Padre Pio, took him out of the public eye as much as possible.
What were the restrictions?
They were severe. He was forbidden to write letters, which was huge because he had many spiritual children he corresponded with.
Cut off his communication.
Right. And maybe even more significantly for a priest, he was forbidden to preach publicly. No sermons.
Wow, so his main avenues for public ministry were just shut down. Was this seen as purely punitive?
Not entirely. The sources suggest it was also intended partly as a protection, to shield his humility and his privacy from the glare of fame and the demands of the crowds. Keep him grounded, perhaps.
Okay, so he's silenced, restricted,
Right.
confined in a way. What happens to his ministry? Does it just wither?
That's the paradox. It doesn't wither at all. In fact, you could argue it becomes even more focused, more intense.
Where did his energy go?
Into the one arena they couldn't completely close off, the confessional. The sources say his only battleground became the confessional box.
This is where that other reported gift comes in, right? His discernment.
Exactly. Because he couldn't preach to the masses, his spiritual interaction became intensely personal, one-on-one, in confession. And he developed this reputation, this alleged ability to read souls.
Meaning he knew people's sins before they said them, or knew if they were holding back.
That's the claim. That he could see into the penitent's heart, know their deepest struggles, their hidden sins, whether they were being sincere or not.
So going to confession with him wasn't just routine.
Apparently not. It became this potentially terrifying, but also potentially transformative encounter, facing someone who people believed saw right through them.
Did this power, this reputation, diminish because he was silenced?
Quite the opposite. It seemed to amplify his fame, but in a different way. People sought him out because of this intense private power, and his obedience to the restrictions, staying put, staying silent, made the act of reaching him, of getting into that confessional, even more significant. It was a pilgrimage in itself.
Which leads to the core analysis here, the outcome of the restrictions.
Yes. The source material points to this stunning result. Despite the church imposing these really harsh limitations on his public activities, on his communication,
His quiet, faithful obedience to those restrictions.
resulted in what's described as a miraculous abundance of his harvest of souls.
So the silencing didn't stop his influence, it actually refined it, focused it.
Seems so. By forcing him into that most intimate, demanding ministry, the confessional, it put him exactly where his unique gifts, like that discernment, were most potent. His impact didn't shrink, it deepened. It went global, not through preaching or writing, but through these hidden encounters.
It proves that visibility isn't everything.
Not at all. His power wasn't in being seen or heard by the masses. It was in the unseen, the quiet encounter, the one-on-one transformation. The world beat a path to his remote village, not for speeches, but for this encounter with him. This living paradox of suffering and spiritual power. #Tap outro.
So when we look back across this whole deep dive, the journey is just remarkable, the sheer contrast.
It really is. You start with his own self-description, right? Un macarone senza sale. A bland noodle.
Yeah, and you end with someone who experienced these incredibly dramatic, sometimes terrifying physical and spiritual realities, battling demons, bearing wounds that baffled doctors,
And you see this undeniable link explored in the sources between the physical suffering, the constant illness, the fevers, the decades of pain from the stigmata, and this immense spiritual power.
Manifesting as discernment, the ability to withstand those attacks.
Exactly. And the ultimate effectiveness of his life, the harvest of souls, it didn't come from breaking the rules or seeking the spotlight. It came from obedience, from that hidden suffering becoming somehow powerfully manifest.
His life really does demonstrate something profound. Here's a man defined by physical limits, by mandated silence, stuck in this remote village.
And yet his influence just grew exponentially. It's a completely counterintuitive model for impact, isn't it?
Totally. Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe reflect on.
Yeah. We live in a world right now where visibility seems key. Constant communication, building a profile, being out there, it's seen as essential for success, for influence, in almost any field.
Business, politics, even spirituality sometimes.
Right. So what does Padre Pio's life, this hidden, silent, suffering life, suggest about where true power, lasting impact might actually come from?
Can profound influence still be generated through obscurity, through isolation, suffering, and quiet obedience, rather than just being loud and visible?
It's definitely something to think about, especially as you navigate, the constant noise of our own world.